Hello, Bengals fans. I am Matt Minnick. Welcome to a special live Chalk Talk. Joining me today, you all know him from breaking news on Twitter, putting out some great GIFs. It is Malik Wright. Malik, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Matt. I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm super excited. Lots of stuff to talk about. Ready to get into it.
Yeah, I've been told my GIF game is strong too, but I don't have the sources you have, so I'm not. I'm rarely subtly breaking news through a GIF, but it does make it like a little fun thing for us to try and figure out and try and solve.
For sure, all the decoding. I don't know. GIFs have always been my thing. So like, I was like, you know what? Let's add a little twist to it. Let's add a little more excitement to it. So that's why I started just using GIFs to break some news, and it latched on. People love it. So.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's good stuff. It makes it a little bit more fun, a little bit more exciting, gets a little bit more buzz going too. Because now like people are just like, oh, and then they move on with their lives. You're like, hey, what does this mean? Does it mean what I think it does? So, who day, Alex? Who day? I'm terrible at adding.
Oh, Alex Sagini, he's one of my guys. He's actually my co-host of the Game Changer show. You guys can catch every single Wednesday.
Awesome. Where can they catch that?
You can catch it actually. You'll see it typically live on the YouTube channel TWSN. You'll also see it on our Twitter page as well.
All right, yeah, lots of great Bengals content out there. Make sure you're giving Malik a follow. Check out their YouTube page as well. Some awesome stuff. Really, I mean, this is a great community of Bengals creators, and we're all sitting here and we're poised, and I think we have strong followings, we have loyal followings, and yet the team has not produced in the way that any of us wanted to over the past few seasons.
For sure.
And that's really what brings us together today. Yeah. Is I had something that was inside of me that I needed to get out. I was a little nervous about it, and I was like, how are people going to react? What are they going to say? People are going to think I'm nuts.
Right.
Finally, in June, I said, you know what? The Bengals are a 10-plus win team this year. Last week, you came out and said basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So Malik and I are very different. If you follow both of us, some of you may just be following his link, some of you might be following my link. Maybe you don't know who the other one is. But we come at things from a very different place. I have zero sources. Malik is connected. I watch game film. That's about all I have. And
you're the best. You're the boy. Don't sell yourself.
I appreciate it.
You're one of the best at it, my man. I've been watching your stuff for so long. Big fan of yours.
But that's the thing. It's like sometimes you get inklings, and you get ideas from that stuff too. Yeah. And it's not, just like you're hearing whispers sometimes. The film speaks to me in a certain way, or what somebody's saying in interviews means something different, when you hear it and you have certain experiences. So let's start with you. What makes you want to go out and make this bold claim after 6.5 wins in Zach Taylor's first two go-arounds that they're going to break double digits in the win column this year?
Well, Matt, if you don't mind me, I kind of want to touch on something really big before I tell you that. You had said something earlier. You said, the Bengals aren't doing well right now as a football team, but yet and still, we still have an audience. We still have a huge following. And I think the really unique thing about that is I think the Bengals have a special fan base, to be completely honest with you. I think the Bengals have a special fan base, and I think that Bengals fans love people who are able to still produce amazing content and give them in-depth looks at the things that they don't see. I think that when your team isn't doing well from a football standpoint or a wins and losses standpoint, you tend to look for some type of hope, right? But you can learn a lot from watching Coach Minnick and seeing Chalk Talk and or hearing my takes about the Bengals. The little things that you don't necessarily see show up in the win and loss column, you might see show up on the game film, which gives you hope for next season. Which brings me to my next point, which is why I think the Bengals are going to be a 10+ win season this year. I think that the defense is going to be much better. I think that they've got players who actually believe in the system, believe in Coach Anarumo, who I'm a believer in. And I honestly, I think that Joe Burrow has shown what he's capable of, even in a limited sample size. I think we saw what Joe Burrow could potentially be. Now you couple that, we got some guys off the team, we added some new pieces, got a brand new right tackle and Riley Reef in there with us, and really, they just sort of tried to revamp even the guard position at that. I think with the addition of Jamar Chase, I think it's going to do wonders. I'm sure we'll break or we'll talk about our games necessarily, but I certainly see a lot of promise in the Bengals season this year.
I just want to give a shout out to Jacques Williams here, Dayton native out in Connecticut. I was born in Fremont, Ohio. Spent very little of my life in Ohio, to be honest with you, but I'm out here in New England as well, living in Rhode Island right now. So,
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, love to see that. Love to see some more Bengals fans out in this neck of the woods.
For sure.
Yeah, so I mean, you touched on it. Before I get to kind of where my head came out with that, you touched on the belief in Lou Anarumo, and like we said, Elise Jesse. Big fan of Elise. Elise has been on the show. Great Cincy area reporter. She had come out with some negative stuff about Lou, about the feeling about Lou in that locker room. Now, we don't know exactly who her sources were on that, but we know Carlos Dunlap isn't there. All right, we know Geno Atkins isn't there anymore. We know William Jackson isn't there anymore. We know Carl Lawson isn't there anymore. And I'm not saying anything negative about any of those guys. We all love all four of those guys. I don't think anybody will say a negative word about any of those people and what they've done for the Bengals organization. But I mean, that's a huge turnaround. Those are some big names. Really in just the last few months, some big names defensively. You've got Sean Williams out of there as well. So I mean, just a lot of change going on and replacing some of those guys. So I mean, is that from your sources, when the whispers you hear from things, like was it a matter of buy-in from these old Marvin holdover guys who, like I said, were a big part of the team and big part of the team's past? Do you think that has been a lot of the defensive issue?
So I love that you brought that up. So when I talk about the truth, there are three sides to the truth, right? There's your side, my side, and then there's the actual truth. That's the three parts of the truth. I'll put it to you this way, without divulging too much, because I think the team has truly tried to move on from that whole thing last year, the whole fiasco last year. I'll put it this way. I think that there were players, key players, on the Cincinnati Bengals defense last year who were not bought into Lou Anarumo's system, and they never gave the guy a chance. Well, I'll put it to you that way. They were not happy that this coaching staff was brought in. So it wasn't just Lou Anarumo; it was literally the football team. They didn't give the football team an opportunity. They didn't give the football team the new coaching staff a chance, and it resulted in what it resulted into. Right? You typically saw Marvin Lewis's regime was a little bit, I guess, tight closed, and that happened over time, right? Marvin Lewis was Cincinnati Bengals head coach for 16 years. Zach Taylor's coming in as a first-time head coach. Lou Anarumo is a first-time defensive coordinator. So yes, you have to earn the respect of the players. You have it's either you earn the respect of the players or the players are going to walk over you. So I think that you have players who are bought into the system of what you're trying to do in Cincinnati. Then you had the batch that wasn't, and the batch that wasn't. Not all of the people that aren't there, but you can kind of put two and two together. In the fashion in which they left and why they're no longer a part of the Cincinnati Bengals. So, that's that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can say that. Obviously, those are talented guys. Those are great players, but sometimes it's just time to go. And from my experience, I think a lot of people can relate to this in whatever you do for a living. Sometimes there are people that you've worked with, you've worked for. And they've had a good run, and things just change.
Right.
And it's better for them to be somewhere else. It's better for the organization if they're somewhere else. And it doesn't mean that AJ Green didn't have a great year in Arizona this year. It doesn't mean that Carl Lawson and William Jackson can't tear it up this year as well. Hopefully, something works out for Geno. I think we all want to see Geno go out on a high note and have success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean those guys are bad guys. It's just
right.
It wasn't right anymore.
I like me personally about the Carlos Dunlap thing. Carlos Dunlap was a staple in the Bengals organization for so long, but I thought I didn't think that we were getting the most out of that position, out of that player. I I wasn't really impressed with his performance. And this was even when Marvin was there. I think that Carlos Dunlap picked and chose spots in which he wanted to show up. I mean, we saw it even hit the first year of Zach Taylor's tenure. He played well in sparingly in certain moments. He was not consistent. And I think that the whole idea is if you are a starter on a football team in the National Football League, you're expected to be consistent. Consistency is key. And if you're not being consistent, well, people are not going to take what you're saying necessarily as serious or as concrete as law, because you're not even playing up to par. So how can you say this guy isn't doing that or this guy isn't doing that, but you're not even producing when you're getting the opportunity to?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you look too, and obviously injury and age played a large role in some of these things. I was on board when they re-signed those guys.
Yeah.
I was on board with it. I thought they would both, play it out. I honestly thought Gino would have a better chance of playing out that contract than Carlos would. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame it ended the way it did, but we gotta move on. And like I said, hopefully they can have some success elsewhere, and still the Bengals can kind of move on with it. But yeah, you look and Anarumo came in and they did change the system. Like every other team in the NFL, they're 4-down nickel most of the time. But we were seeing a lot of that, 3-4 look, which is really a 5D lineman look for them in those situations. And, that kind of had Carlos playing in a funky spot, in particular, where like Sam Hubbard, Carl Lawson, those guys were like a little bit more inclined, I think, to that stand-up
kind of stuff,
position. Actually, when the coaching change occurred, Joe Woods, who's now the Browns defensive coordinator, that was the guy I wanted as the defensive coordinator, because I was like, man, the way they're playing Bradley Chubb, that's what Carl Lawson should be doing. So, and obviously that's it was a stand-up type of situation in Denver with what Woods was doing there. So, but like it didn't really fit. It wasn't a great move for Dunlap, and maybe there was some unwillingness for him to change too.
Yeah, I mean, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. That's one of my favorite quotes, right? And you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not willing to put the work in, willing to grind, willing to be a part of the team, well, proof's in the pudding. Like I look at it, you saw there were certain performances this season where the defense actually did play much better, right? Mm-hmm. You coach football. What's the first thing you look for in a player? A player can have all the talent in the world, but you got to show effort. You gotta want it, right? You gotta want to put your best foot forward. And I remember when Marvin Lewis left. Marvin Lewis left the Cincinnati Bengals. In his goodbye press conference, he said, you can get rid of coaches all day. You can get rid of coaches all day. But at some point, the players have to play. The players got to play. Mm-hmm. And these are issues that haven't just plagued the Zach Taylor era. It's also issues that plagued the Marvin Lewis era when there's a culture of losing. When there's a culture of losing, it's hard to overcome that. You have to see some silver lighting at the end. That's why you saw the Bengals defense. It's like the morale thing. If you ever played Madden, the morale goes down if your team isn't playing well. The morale is up if the team is playing well. It's the reason why the Bengals kicked the Steelers' ass. I mean, let's call it what it was. The morale was high, and the team really believed in, I guess, the installment that week. They believed in what they were doing, and they believed that they were truly better than that football team. And I'm expecting them to see that this season as well.
No, there's a couple of things I want to touch on there, and then you actually give me a very good segue into my take into where I came up with this thought. So I'll mention here first, Orange Hero Fantasy Show, Lou trying to run the Patriots morphing defense. Yeah, I mean, that's what they're trying to do, really it's very fluid. You see players playing a lot. I mentioned that they're running. They've got 5D linemen on the field, and they got. Sam Hubbard standing up. At one point I was like, Sam Hubbard's basically a Sam linebacker most of the time. Like they drop, they drop him off quite a bit, and they do some different things. I mean, he doesn't play in coverage quite that much, but like that's the type of stand-up role that he's really playing a lot of the time. And you got Von Bell and Sean Williams. Those were guys who were, Sean Williams really more not 2 years ago than last year, but these are safeties that they were playing in the box at linebacker. Yeah. I think Akeem Davis-Gaither, I think in year two, they had to teach him how to play more of an in-the-box linebacker. But I think we're going to see him maybe doing a lot of the same things that Von Bell does. not the deep field coverage,
right?
But in the box linebacker, lined up over a slot, lined up covering the tight end, things along those lines. So I mean, I think they are very versatile in what they do defensively, and I really I watch this defense and they do some really cool stuff.
Right.
Just as a football guy, as a defense,
right. But people don't see it unless it's all coming together. People don't see it. It's like when the Bengals had Preston Brown out there, and you have to have the right personnel to execute the game plan that you're looking to execute.
Absolutely,
you need to.
Yeah, and so that's got to come together. At the same time, coaches have to, number one, you got to be able to get guys motivated and get them out there too.
Right.
And if you're giving them a game plan they can't execute, that's on you too. So I say these things and I say, hey, this is a cool game plan. They didn't execute it. When I say those things, I'm not forgiving the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to look at it a little deeper and say, all right, it's not that it was a bad idea. It was just poorly executed by the players, which means it was poorly executed by the coaches in terms of how it was installed.
So I love that, right? Here's the thing with me, and I love talking football with you, by the way. This is literally our first time, guys, that we've ever talked football on camera or a phone or anything like that.
Outside of each other's mentions, yep.
Right. Here's the thing, though. When I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, this is literally the first time, I want to say probably since 2015, where I look at both sides of the football, and I'm like, they have a core leader. They have a core leader here. I think leadership is so important on the football field, right? Even though we had Pac-Man Jones and he was what he was, and Vontaze Burfict and he was what he was, and we had Reggie Nelson and so many different guys. We had so many guys in leadership positions on that football team back then. You look at it, it seems like the Bengals have been in limbo from a leadership standpoint from the players for such a long time. It seems like they, once Andrew Whitworth walked out the door, Andy Dalton and AJ Green are quiet leaders. They're not really the loudest guys in the room. I think for the first time, you look at if you would have asked from 2016 till last year, who are the leaders of the Cincinnati Bengals? I think you would have had a really tough time finding. Okay, there's one thing you can have a captain see on your chest, but there's also being a vocal locker room leader. There's also picking up the morale when you're on the sideline when the team is doing bad. And for the first time, I know we're diving really, really deep right now, but I think for the first time in a long time, the Bengals actually have that. I can point to you 3 leaders on each side of the football where I'm like, yep, he's a leader. Yep, he's a leader. They truly have that.
Yeah.
They truly have that.
No, absolutely. And that's important. At the end of the day, I think, coaching plays a big part of that stuff, but you're not in the field with them.
Right.
And you've got to have that presence on the field. You got to have, the story about Joe Montana in the Super Bowl, and he's in the huddle and he's like, hey, you guys see John Candy over there? Just like that, being able to just take that, just be cool. And just oh, there's no pressure here. So that kind of brings me, you kind of segue that nicely into my take on it. And honestly, everything you're hearing, all the interviews with the players, it just feels different.
It does.
You can tell that they don't care that they've won 6 games in 2 years. You could tell, it's just there's a confidence there that I don't remember ever seeing in this team.
Culture.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I'll tell you what. I was a young coach, and I took a job at a small school that was had no history of success.
Right.
As an assistant coach, and one of the things that we did there was we went out and we just recruited. We recruited schools that went to state championships. It was like just go to the schools where they know how to win and bring in winners. And you're not necessarily getting the best kids. You're in New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I'm in Jersey.
New Jersey's great because you go there and there's 1,000 state champions.
Right.
There's five Catholic
leagues,
and
my high
there's 5
school.
different, 5 different South, 5 different Central. There's all these. So literally, I would go down there with 2 other guys, and I'd spend a week in New Jersey. We'd never go to a school that wasn't at least in the state championship game.
You might have went to my school because I think we have some of the most. We might have the most public school championships in New Jersey.
Where's that?
Montclair.
Oh yeah, I love Montclair.
Yeah.
Montclair's great.
Yeah. Coach Fiore.
Coach had the day after signing day. He would have an available recruit night. And I always come in and sweep in there because I was at D3, so we didn't have scholarships. So Montclair, great school, but that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Is like, what have the Bengals done? You know, like look at their last 3 first-round picks. You know, LSU championship, LSU championship. Bama wins some championships. You know, like they're taking all these guys, and then you go to the second round. You know, a couple of Clemson guys. You know, and Jackson Carmen as well. Like they're recruiting people that they're recruiting. Excuse me. They're drafting guys that know how to win.
Right.
You know, they're going out and they're finding these guys from winning programs, and it's confidence. But it's also understanding how to prepare. You know, it's understanding how to attack everything that you do. I mean, you hear all these ridiculous stories about Burrow, like he was in grad school, and I mean, some grad schools you do stuff. Most grad schools it's pretty easy because they assume you have a full-time job.
Right.
So you didn't have a full-time job. He was a full-time football player.
Right.
In college. You know, so like these guys, they understand what it's about. They understand how to attack it because they've already come from these cultures. So you're not starting from nothing. They already know about, these winning backgrounds, these winning cultures. And I think you see that too. You're seeing a lot of the free agents they're bringing in, like they won some games in the NFL. They've been to some playoff games. Mike Hilton's had some success. Riley Reef has had some success. Like these guys have been on some pretty good teams. So I think that's a big part of it. Having that culture, you can build that, you can replace that, by bringing in people that know how to do it.
And people laughed when they kept hearing in every Zach Taylor press conference. I mean, in every post game one, we're building the right culture. We have the right culture. Are the right players here? Getting the right players here. You kept hearing culture, and you're like, I remember it became a joke at some point. People were like, "What do you mean about culture?" Now we're seeing it manifest itself. That's the reason that culture that Zach Taylor's talking about. That's the reason why they had 100% attendance at OTAs and was one of the only teams that happened. You know what I mean? Like that's the reason why. That's the reason why Joe Burrow fought. I felt like he would have fought like hell to come back from an ACL injury regardless. But that's why you see him wanting to be a leader, not just for his current teammates, but he said it was important for the younger guys to see me, the younger guys that are coming in to see that. That's the reason why you've got so many people stepping up because of the culture. They understand what's in front of them.
I'm sorry, but you see, then they cut off OTAs.
Yeah.
And look, Zach Taylor is on the hot seat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's probably not as hot as we think it is.
Yeah.
But if he wins 2 games next year, if he has another season like he's had, if Burrow's healthy and they're not winning games, he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Regardless of how confident the organization is in him right now, and he knows that.
Right.
He's been fired before. He's been on staffs that have been fired before mid-season. You know what I mean? So the fact that he did that, how confident is he? How much is he feeling it?
Right.
I remember hearing that, I was like, oh, they're sending him home.
Yeah.
That was one of those big things. It was like, ooh, this is something.
You really believe? Oh,
yes.
You really believe in your team and what you guys are doing? No, absolutely. Zach Taylor he's not going to be the loudest guy and saying this and that and third, but it's a quiet confidence and he has. And you see the team. You see the team has that confidence this year, shocking the world and doing so many different things. You see. I don't know. You just see the team a little bit different. The era of the Bengals this year is just a little bit different from years past.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can feel it. It's like this is something different. Something big is coming. Yeah. And you look at last year, and I think that I don't know. Ranking schedules is really tough because you don't know what's going to happen. But it seems like next year's schedule is tougher than last year's.
Yeah,
they were getting into a soft spot in the schedule. I think they would have strung together a few more wins with Burrow in there towards the end of the year.
Absolutely.
I think that they'd probably win that Redskins game. So we can't see everything that happens, and we really can't see this year because the press isn't even in the locker room. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you can, sometimes when you're there, you can feel it. And like I said, now I think that's coming off in these interviews. This is different. They know it's different, and they've got these guys that have done it before. These guys that know what maybe not all in the NFL, but they've got all these national championship rings on the team. Right. And these guys are like, Yep. Here we go.
They're about their business. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So let's talk about, like, you mentioned the defense. You mentioned you believe in Lou. You think the defense is going to be a lot better. So let's talk about some issues with that and some things that, could potentially hold them back. If that defense doesn't turn around, I don't think it's a death sentence, to be honest with you, because you got Burrow and those 3 receivers.
Right.
If you can protect him, you're in pretty good. You're still going to win a lot of games. Absolutely. But so we're looking at a defensive line. Struggle to stop the run at times. In particular, dealing with the Browns, so they're going to see twice more in that talented running game. Struggle to get after the quarterback. You got William Jackson gone.
Yeah.
And really, a couple of guys who have underachieved a little bit in their careers, coming into those starting roles and at the cornerback position. And then you've got a completely unproven group of linebackers. 4 guys, by the way, who I was big fans of them drafting, but very, very much unproven. So, what are your thoughts on that and how kind of the defense could mesh together? I just asked you about the entire defense in one question.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I think that you got guys, right? Let's talk about Larry Ogunjobi for a second. He was played out of position in Cleveland. He was played out of position in Cleveland. He's a 3-tech, right? They had him playing nose tackle at times in Cleveland. I think you pair him up with DJ Reader. I think it's a plus that you don't have Isaiah McKenzie starting on the defensive line as a starter. I think it's a plus. You got guys like Trey Hendrickson, who, like we talked about, coming from winning programs. Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard's still in there. Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think Cheetah Awuzie. Anybody who knows me, I love Cheetah Awuzie. I've always been a huge fan of him. He played on some terrible defenses in Dallas, but I always thought he had the ability. I think he's similar to William Jackson in ways. I think that I could be wrong, but I think he may track the ball a little bit better than William Jackson. William Jackson, that was a real issue with him, and I believe if William Jackson tracked the ball better, he would be in Cincinnati still. Let him probably tell you a different story, but that's a fact. The guy didn't know how to pull an interception down. How many interceptions we saw the guy drop? But no, I think that the fact that they have a new revamped defensive line, and you just see they brought high motor guys in here like Cam Sample. They brought so many different guys in here that can get after the quarterback. It's almost like a volume thing, and they can rotate these guys in and out. It seems like that was the goal. That was the goal. I know a lot of people are excited for Joseph Asai. I'm excited for him as well. I think that the Bengals defensive line is going to shock a lot of people. And obviously, we know the defensive line is providing that pressure while everything is easier on the linebackers and the corners as well. I think the Bengals have a really underrated safety group because I think they have the best safety in football in Jesse Bates. I think Von Bell is also good for what he does as well. And like I said, their corners may not be the strongest that they've been in years past, but I kind of like them. I kind of like what they're going to ask them to do. I'm curious to see how they use Mike Hilton. I know we picked up a Pittsburgh player before in the past, and James Harrison, and that necessarily didn't work out. So I'm really curious to see how that pans out. But I just think that having a new found energy inside the building, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it feels like it's been so long since the Bengals have had truly a defensive overhaul. I'm looking to see bigger jumps from guys like Logan Wilson, who I'm a huge believer in Logan Wilson. I also believe in Jermaine Pratt. He was one of my favorite draft picks. Jermaine Pratt, and I know you're a big Akeem Davis Gaither guy as well. I think that the Bengals literally have quietly could have one of the best young linebacking tandems in the NFL. And if Marcus Bailey pans out, that's just a huge plus as well.
Yeah, and I think it's clear what they're looking for. You see a lot of high-effort guys. You see guys they pointed out 2 years ago they were taking all these guys that were coaches' kids and team captains. From I think there were 5 coaches' kids. There were 4 or 5 coaches' kids in that 7-man draft. Right. And a bunch of team captains. And, you look at Osai and Sample, and you see they can both kind of play linebacker a little bit. So they have that versatility that you get with Hubbard. You've seen both of them play a little bit inside too. Right. Again, that versatility like we see with Hubbard. I forget who it was, but talking about, having the Patriots, an amoeba type defense. Like those are the guys that can do that. And like literally, I had first of all, Pratt. I think I had Pratt ranked number 2 amongst linebackers in that draft.
Wow.
Based on film alone. And then literally I had him ranked in front of Devin Bush, and then I saw Devin Bush's 40 time, and I was like, okay, that's enough to push him ahead.
Yeah.
Because they were pretty close. But I thought Pratt was an excellent linebacker. But he needed to work on some stuff in coverage. A little, not what you would expect from a converted safety, but I mean, great tackler, flies around. The 3 guys they drafted last year, I had 3rd round grades on all of them. I had them ranked right in a row with each other.
Wow.
And again, that was just on film. I wasn't accounting for Akeem and Bailey having injuries that they were coming off of. But all those guys, Akeem's a little different because he can do some hybrid things. He hasn't played a traditional linebacker role. But all of those guys, much better speed than we've seen in the past with Bengals. So excellent athletes. Great tacklers too, and we saw too many missed tackles a couple years ago, and they've really they did that in free agency that year too. They really looked to make that over. You talk about effort. I mean, after effort, it's tackling. That's the second thing you look for as a coach in these guys. So I mean, Pratt kind of, I saw some positives really in his a lot more than most people did, I think, in his rookie year, and he kind of leveled off a little bit this year. So now we got to see him take that next step.
Right.
But I personally, people talk about bringing in a veteran or bringing in another linebacker. I want these young guys to get reps.
And I think that was in large part why they didn't. That's why they didn't, because I think in large part, it was very difficult for them to find Jermaine Pratt a true role on this team, because you want to play guys like Akeem Davis-Gaither, Logan Wilson, and Jermaine Pratt. That ideally, those are the guys you really want to rely on. It's kind of difficult to do that when you have a Josh Bynes in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just gonna throw this out there too. Akeem Davis is his first start. I talk about liking the defense. That was if anybody who coaches defensive football, just watch that game, because both defenses were so fun. Baltimore was just throwing everything they could at Burrow.
Yeah.
So removing it from being a Bengals fan, it was oh, this is some cool stuff they're doing.
Right.
But yeah, the way that they were playing that 4-3 with Davis Gaither in the field, and really a tight 4-3 in the box that you don't see very often in the NFL. The way they were doing that and the different things they were doing to try and stop Baltimore's run game. They were doing some really interesting stuff, and that was just a really fun game. Just as
people are
somebody that likes defensive football.
Lamar was hurt. No, I think they honestly, that could have played a factor, but I also think the Bengals had an excellent game plan.
Lamar didn't hold the ball very often, and there were a lot of read plays where they got the ball out of his hands, and that's what you got to understand about it. Sure, there was a play where he pulled it and he shouldn't have, and Logan Wilson had a tackle for a loss. Mm-hmm. Lamar Jackson, might take that for a 50-yard touchdown, even though he made the wrong read. Right. But I mean, I think overall it was they did a pretty good job of keeping the ball out of his hands in that game.
I agree.
So yeah, I mean, that was a pretty cool, pretty cool game plan, and some different things that we were able to do there. And yeah, I think you really look at it last year, and again, as a coach, you got to figure out how to win with what you have. So I'm not completely forgiving that staff, but when you can't get to the quarterback and your CB2 play stinks,
right?
How are you supposed to win games doing that?
Yeah.
I'm hoping. We all love Darius Phillips. He wasn't very good last year.
Yeah.
He was a little dinged up, so hopefully he'll play better this year. But Sims obviously wasn't cutting it.
Right.
And I liked how they kind of went to the thing where they were trying to get 20 good plays out of each of them.
Right.
People were wait a minute, why don't they just pick a guy? It's no, all right, this makes sense. Try and make it work. What you have, but yeah, Mike Hilton's a great example too of how plugging in a different player. Look, I really like Mackenzie Alexander. I would have been a fan of them bringing him back. Mackenzie Alexander missed a tackle on a blitz at the end of the Browns game.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Week 7 Browns game.
Yep.
They didn't have any timeouts. The Browns didn't.
Right.
He makes that sack. They're dealing with 2nd and 17.
Right.
The clock is running.
Right.
Does Baker throw that ball to Darius Phillips and move the ball on the field?
Probably not.
That could have been the game. It's one play. It's mind-boggling to me how 10 wins for the Bengals is a crazy take, and yet there are legitimate people saying the Browns are have a chance at the Super Bowl if they can get by Mahomes, and like they lost 2 games by like a total of a score to the Browns last year. The Bengals did, they can play with that team.
With a banged up team.
Yes. Oh, geez, man, that Thursday night, like I was playing D line on that Thursday night. Like they didn't have anything. And they went out. That was actually that Thursday night against the Browns in week 2. I was actually kind of impressed with it. It was like that goal line stand.
Oh yeah,
that was like everything that had in the tank, and it was just like over after that. Like obviously you get the fumble, the missed protection, the fumble by Burrow there, and then they end up scoring. Like if the Bengals could have put a drive together, like it was good, but it was going to be erased from that point because they couldn't play defense anymore.
Right,
they were just done. Short week, didn't have the guys they needed, and like they needed to win a track meet.
Absolutely,
they couldn't afford to let it go there. But anyway. So that's the defense. Obviously, there's another big issue to worry about, and the issue we've talked about the most throughout the offseason is the offensive line. Mm-hmm. The other thing that can hold them back is the offensive line. Did they do enough to address that position? Can they keep Burrow safe long enough to make do with having, to take advantage really of having all the talent that they have at the wide receiver position now?
Mm-hmm. I've got to see Jackson Carman actually play NFL action. I think the expectation is for him to be a starter. Obviously, that's why he was drafted in the 2nd round and drafted to play guard. I think a lot of people panicked at first when they saw him get drafted. Like, oh my God, is he playing tackle? No. Yeah. Right. But he's drafted to play guard, and he's
literally, like, I'm sorry to cut you off.
But, of course.
When I evaluate, the first thing I do is I watch the film, and I just I'll have a form and things I want to check off later. Mm-hmm. But the first time I watch in film, I just write down words, like just whatever pops into my head. Mm-hmm. Like I try and keep it raw. The first thing I wrote was not good
for Jackson Carman.
Yeah, and now he was hurt, which I didn't realize at the time. I didn't know at the time because I look at that stuff after I watched the film. But he was hurt and he was playing tackle, and then so I was like, oh geez, when they took him. But as soon as it was clear that he's a guard, it's like, okay, I could see that.
Yeah,
a lot of the problems he has were working in space. Things that hopefully with a healthy backer better, but also you're going to be able to work better in a tight confine as a guard. Go on, sir.
No worries. And he truly seems like a student of the game as well. So I personally think that the offensive line it's still up to question. You're expecting big leaps from guys like Jonah Williams. I expect Riley Reif was, other people might think that this person was the Bengals' big free agent ticket signing in terms of Trey Hendrickson. I think Riley Reif in the Bengals' eyes was their big free agent, but he's going to be a guy that's going to truly help solidify that offensive line, right? He's going to be that guy. He's done it he's been one of the most consistent tackles in football for quite some time. He's going to be the Bengals starting right tackle. Alongside Jonah Williams, you're expecting him to be able to be that veteran leader, be that veteran presence on the offensive line. And I think that just by the Bengals getting rid of Bobby Hart, I think that was a positive as well. But not to knock on Bobby Hart too rough, but I really think Riley Reif is a huge upgrade, like a massive upgrade from Bobby Hart. I believe in Quentin Spain. I think Quentin Spain should be a starter amongst that offensive line. Clearly, you want to see how he continues to grow with the football team and things of that nature because he did come on late last year. But if Quentin Spain can truly help be in there and help solidify a guard spot, I think it'd be great. Want to see Jackson Carman, but in my opinion, it'll be Jackson Carman and Xavier Su'a-Filo battling out for a spot. I think that the Bengals did enough to help the offensive line. I think they did enough to make the offensive line maybe average. Obviously, if they play together long enough, they can get better and better because they'll have that camaraderie. They'll establish that timing with one another. Here's something interesting to note as well, though. This team didn't really have too many practices with each other last year, obviously with the whole COVID protocols and things of that nature. So it's really hard to kind of gauge how – I mean, don't get me wrong, the offensive line was bad last year, but I think it's really hard to gauge how the strides that they could have potentially made, how they would have had those extra reps with one another had Joe Burrow been actually able to them to be able to get used to his cadence and things of that nature. Center spot is a little bit of a question because you don't know what what's going to happen with Trey Hopkins. But I'm gonna tell you something, Matt. Trey Hill, who the Bengals drafted out of Georgia. I don't know about you, but I'm a huge fan of the guy. He's a hog molly. He's a guy that takes up a lot of space. He's a guy that I believe can shock a lot of people and turn a lot of heads, whether that be I don't know if he'll play guard. It'll be tough to see. I know he's got to get his weight under control, but it'll be interesting. I'm a big fan of his, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting one. I mean, I think the thought is that Billy Price is probably going to look for greener pastures and try and restart somewhere else at the end of the year. So you've got him, and even if you keep him around on the practice squad, he becomes that other guy. My thought, I'm just going to throw this one out there. Billy Price, people forget that we just love to remember the negative stuff, and you have your nerves. Billy Price played pretty well as a rookie.
Yeah.
Like he was hurt at the beginning, but he actually played pretty well. And who was his coach?
Frank Pollock.
Mm-hmm. So
I had a hot take. I actually had a hot take. Sorry to cut you off. I had a really hot take.
We'll see if it's the same thing I was about to say. But go.
I told people, I said, I think Billy Price is going to start the season because I think Trey Hopkins is still going to rehab that injury. And I don't think Billy Price is going to lose that starting job.
Oh, okay. That might be even hotter. Okay. My thought was Billy Price starts the year, plays really well, plays the best football he's played in his career, and Trey Hopkins comes back, and because he's on an expiring contract, they trade Billy Price before the deadline. So I'm just throwing that one out there. But either way, I think just it seems like some of the things I've read, like the writing between the lines, is that he doesn't really want to be here anyway. But maybe when Pollock comes back. And by the way, when Pollock coming back. By the way, that's not a negative either, because that's one of the things I've noticed with Billy. Like when you watch Bengals game, if he's not playing, and the Bengals make a big play. He's like the dude on the sideline going nuts every single time.
Absolutely.
He was as invested in this team as anybody. So he definitely cares about his people on this team. I think it just might be one of those things where maybe he has a sour taste in his mouth and he's like, I'm going to go somewhere else.
I think that can be changed, though. I think all he's looking for is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Sure. Since he's been here, he has not been given an opportunity. He has not been really given like a true opportunity to really it's always been a short leash. If you play well, okay, if you play good, great. If you play bad, we're pulling you. Like,
you can understand how some people just aren't going to mess with Jim Turner.
Yeah.
Some
people, a lot of people, but no, I think it's one of those situations where I think Billy Price he's one of those guys. First of all, kudos to Mike Brown. First and foremost, for being able to get Frank Pollock back in the door. That was one I saw a lot of stuff coming in the offseason, guys, and Frank Pollock was one that I heard rumbles about, but I never thought Frank Pollock would consider coming back to Cincinnati, because when he came here, it was more so Zach Taylor wanted to bring in his own people, essentially. So I didn't know how that would mesh. I didn't know how that would work, but it's an interesting dynamic, because I just think we're going to see a nastier offensive line. And remember, when Frank Pollock was the offensive lines coach before, we had guys like Christian Westerman, Alex Redmond, Billy Price, Cordy Glenn, and Billy Bobby Hart.
And guess what? Joe Mixon led the AFC in rushing.
Absolutely. And that's why people don't realize
this O-line is much more talented than the last time Pollock was here.
This is some people thought it was a hot take, but I'll say it again right here on your show. This is the best offensive line Joe Mixon has ever played behind. This offensive line right here, as it stands, is the best offensive line Joe Mixon has played behind in the National Football League.
All right, you heard it here. That is bold, but I like it. So, I mean, we're looking at some change there. I'm gonna go to some of the comments here, because I don't want to act like everything I'm saying is original to me, but. Well, Pollock knows how to develop linemen. Yep, Mixon led the AFC in rushing. Just like we said a minute ago. That wasn't the one I was looking for. Rel said something before that was good too. I can't remember what it was. Here it is. Back to the defense. Linebackers need Marion Hobby. They needed the D lineman to be better. And I think the linebackers took a lot of heat last year for not stopping the run when the D line was getting pushed around. And they had a bunch of guys off the street. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like they're picking up, your Bledsoes and your Covingtons, and they're like these aren't guys that should be getting the reps they were getting. They're guys that can play a role, but that guys should be getting the reps they were getting.
I think it's also important if you have a defensive line coach in there that is actually preaching the same message as the defensive coordinator too.
Absolutely.
I'll put it to you that way. You could put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
And I think and I think we saw that with some of the staff changes from the previous year too, in the defensive backfield in particular. That they definitely seem to be more on the same page and running coverages where I'm sitting there for an hour trying to figure out what they're doing because everybody knows what they're doing. So
right.
There was another comment in here, and again, I think my screen refreshed, so I missed it. So sorry, I'm trying to give you guys some love with these great comments. But somebody had asked about Carmen and the impact that Reef will have, and I think that's great because you look at Reef's on a 1-year deal. You got Carmen who played left tackle. He's learning right guard. And he's next to a guy who's played in the league and has a ton of experience and was another high pick, productive guy in the league. And so, I mean, there is an opportunity there that maybe they do identify that in Carmen. Maybe he is the right tackle of the future. And you're essentially training right there next to next to that guy. People were saying, you talk about Whitworth and Whitworth playing guard earlier in his career, and people said that about Penne, like, oh, well, he can play guard. No. You draft a guy that high, you put him where he belongs.
Right, absolutely.
But it's different the second round. Like you put him at guard, and you're getting a good guard for a year. Right, that's a good pick even in that year. And then if he develops into a starting tackle under your answer at the right tackle position, even better. Right. Now you're in a great spot. You've got a short-term answer at one position, and you've got a long-term answer at a more valuable position. That would be huge. But even just solidifying that right guard position, now you've got all these guys that have played left guard before with Suafilo, who I like, who's done some things well. Quentin Spain, who we forget, like you talk about guys haven't played with each other. Quentin Spain showed up and got thrown into a game. Right. With no starters on the field, because, he didn't play a mate, but he solidified that guard spot in that game. Because before I forgot who they had in there. I forgot the guy's name, Shaquille Hoon. Yeah, they had Shaquille Hoon, and he was playing atrocious. And he was playing, I think, because I'm pretty sure he was playing left guard that game. Yep. Yeah. So he was playing next to Hakeem. Yep. You started left tackle that game. So, you get that. That's a situation like we were talking about with Carmen and Reef. Like, he was in there and he, helped to solidify and, probably calm down that rookie a little bit. Right. Knowing you can trust that guy next to him. Now, there is a guy that a lot of people are forgetting about. I don't want to forget about him. Deontay Smith, who the Bengals drafted this year out of ECU. The Bengals are really high on him. They think if he can add weight, he can truly develop into being a really special player. He really turned a lot of heads at the Senior Bowl. Don't discount him being starting right tackle in the future. That's what I'll say about that, because I think Jackson Carman, the thought processes, and I forgot whose board was it, but yeah, Jackson Carman ranked as the second best guard in the entire draft. Some even had him ranked as third, fourth best guard in the entire draft. Do not discount Deontay Smith turning into something really special. Remember his entire thing. Wow, look at that right there. Look at that right there. I think he will shock a lot of people. He seems like an anchor. He just needs to build the weight on. And I think he's learning under the right offensive line coach in Frank Pollock. Deontay Smith, in my opinion, will be the Bengals starting right tackle in the future. I agree. All right, awesome. Yeah, I mean, and you got that. You got Carmen as a possibility. You got Smith as a possibility. Options, which are good. Hakeem's out this year, but maybe he's still the answer. Let me ask you a question. Fred Johnson. Maybe there we go. That's the one. And now you got a coach that you believe in. Now you got a coach that coming in with a different philosophy, coming in from a different perspective. So can he develop these guys? That's going to be the big point with it. And I think Pollock meshes very well with Zach Taylor. It wasn't his guy in the same way, but Pollock was with the Texans. As a young coach, under Gary Kubiak was a guy they talked about for the offensive coordinator position here, because he's an under center, run the outside zone and run the bootleg guy. And it sounds like the Bengals want to do a lot of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So it does make a lot of sense. How he's going to come out and design that run game, make it fit for everybody, keep it consistent. Cause I feel like they started to figure some things out at the beginning of the end of the first year. And then they weren't running the same stuff in year two.
Yeah.
I was like, why? You didn't change your personnel. You had some stuff that worked. Why are you changing this stuff?
They tried to make it. They tried to really force what they wanted to make work again, and instead of just a sort of just following what worked last year for them. What's going on? What's going on? Appreciate the love, guys.
Smith with the big long arms. Yeah. Smith has a lot more reach than some of the guys that they're used to around here. They don't seem to really care about that as much as a lot of teams do.
For sure.
But so I don't know. I mean, I think we've dug pretty deep into this roster. We talked offense and defense. I think we got a kicker now.
I think we have a kicker, a real kicker.
Yeah, they might win week one if they had a kicker last year,
right?
And who knows how the ball gets rolling. But so there's just a lot. There's a lot to be positive about right now.
Even a punter of the future potentially. All
right. We hate to go against the Cincinnati guy, but we've got an Ohio State guy too. So
right. Not kicking Huber out the door just yet.
We can't lose to that though.
Yeah, but, not kicking Huber out the door yet.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just a lot of really positive stuff. Obviously, injuries are the biggest thing. It always is. And we've got to account for that. We've got to watch out for that. I saw somebody, and this is a long time ago, but somebody commented 8 or 9 wins accounting for injuries. I just want to say, I said 10+ win team. I didn't say when those wins were coming. If they get a playoff spot with 9 wins and they win and they get a playoff win.
Matt, I'm willing to call it right now if you want me to. I can call some right now if you want me to. At least let me tell you what I'm envisioning.
All right.
I have the schedule right here in front of me. And this could be Malik being absolutely a weirdo and optimistic, but I'll take it. I think the Bengals start off the season very strong. I think the Bengals beat Minnesota week 1. I think they beat Andy Dalton. Yes, Andy Dalton and the Chicago Bears, because Andy Dalton will still be the starting quarterback at that point. I think the Bengals beat Pittsburgh. I actually think for the first time since 2009. I had the Bengals sweeping Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I think the Bengals are the better football team this year all around. I don't think Pittsburgh have anything. And a lot of people will be like, "You're crazy," because we're so used to Pittsburgh being our biggest rival. I think we're going to start seeing a changing of the guard as to where. Remember those years went by where we were beating the Baltimore Ravens consecutively?
Mm-hmm.
I think Pittsburgh is going to be that for us. I just think that it's going to be a very time. They're going to go through a really difficult time because it took them so long to just admit that they need to go through a little bit of a rebuild. I had the Bengals beating Pittsburgh. I had the Bengals beating Jacksonville as well. The first game, new coach, new quarterback, at home Ring of Honor game, which I'll be at. I'll also be posting the link at, guys. If you guys want to come sit in my section, I'll be with Commissioner Yaz, Ace, Zim, James Rapine. It should be absolutely exciting as well. So, back to that. Jacksonville.
I'll be at home with my 2-week-old, unfortunately. Well, fortunately. But
I've got the Bengals beating Jacksonville. So what does that put them at, Matt? 4-0?
Yeah, there we go.
Yep. I got them starting off 4-0.
That's a strong start.
Yes, sir. I think I have the Cincinnati Bengals losing the first game, if Aaron Rodgers is playing, obviously, to the Green Bay Packers. Let's say Aaron Rodgers is playing, which I believe he will be. I think they beat Detroit. I think they lose to Baltimore. I think they beat the Jets. So that puts them at 5, 6. I think they split with Cleveland. That puts them at 7. I think they beat Vegas, 8. Denver game, 9. And I said I think they sweep Pittsburgh, so that puts them at 10 wins.
There you go.
Those are the games that I have the Bengals winning.
I mean, we're right there, and I agree with you. I think there is a good chance they sweep Pittsburgh. I don't think Pittsburgh's very good.
Yeah,
they're going to have some good, but that's the thing is that defense is always it's been a house of cards for the last couple of years. They get a couple injuries,
right?
It'll be really good, but they get a couple injuries and it's going to have some problems. And I mean, it's just hard to build a team around your defense in today's NFL, especially if you don't have an O-line and a run game where you can play keep away. and play defense. And we definitely haven't seen that out of them. That's maybe a bigger concern in the O line for them than it is for the Bengals right now. So I was just keep an eye on the channel. Coming soon. I was watching Week 7 against the Browns today, and I was like, the whole thing was just like, they're not getting swept by this team next year. Like they should have pulled one of those games off last year. They had a great game plan. Burrow was on fire. And they, like I said, they had a great game plan. Like it was just a couple of little things that it came down to. Despite that pass rush, they even had a pretty good handle on that pass rush. 4 sacks. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't ridiculous. He did have time a lot of the time. So, I'm with you. Honestly, the schedule came out, and I don't have it in front of me, but when the schedule came out, I looked through it a couple times, and I was like, I think it's 12 wins.
Yeah.
It was kind of like you with the gifts. I just tweeted number 12, and I didn't do anything else.
There we go.
I definitely don't have the guts to put that one out there. I'll say it now, but yeah, I feel like 10's a decent number. It's like I think I'm saying to go good, some things to go bad, but I think 10 is a reasonable number for them to be able to do this year.
And I think them starting strong is going to be so important. It's going to be extremely important for the rest of the season. And I believe the Bengals are going to start strong. Absolutely.
Yeah. It should be real strong out of the gate. You've got you broke it down there, but I mean, there's some winnable games in there. Come out strong, building on that confidence that we can see that they have. And that's one of those things that sometimes you just need a little success,
right?
And it just takes. To me, it might have been the Pittsburgh game,
right?
You know what I mean?
That's what I think. I think we're going to look back at. By the way, and I can say I was at that game.
Okay.
We might look back at that game. We might be like, you know what? That was the turning point in the Zach Taylor era.
Yeah, I mean, because I honestly, and that might be something that the players talk about too. It's like they might have walked into the locker room and been like, "We can do this. Like, we can do this. We can pull it off." That's a huge mental barrier for this team.
Yeah.
It was for all the guys that aren't there anymore. We talked about that was a huge mental barrier. Like we know this.
Even the away game, they I think the next week they went out on the road and they beat the Houston Texans. Brandon Allen outdueled Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. So I mean, the signs are there. The tea leaves, however you read them. Like something's different this year.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm excited, and I think we're all poised for it. You can see, all the people watching us live, all the the number of content creators we have out there, really great content creators, and how much support we get from all of y'all, watching right now and listening right now. Like, this fan base is hungry.
Yeah.
Get ready. Get ready because good days are coming, and they've got a shot. They've got a shot. Obviously, some things need to work out. Some things need to come together. There are some unknowns, but man, you can see the path.
Absolutely.
And you can feel it. And you can tell the players see it.
Absolutely.
All the things that people, Zach Taylor can't do it. Zach Lou Anarumo, blah blah, whatever. Like, you could tell that's us.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's not going on in the building. And man, it's exciting. So.
It is exciting. I'm ready. Matt, I appreciate you for having me on, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're right at the hour mark here, so we're going to cut it off. Malik, one more time, if you want to just talk about anything you want to plug, your Twitter or anywhere else people can follow you and everything you're doing.
You guys appreciate that, Matt. You guys can follow me on Twitter, obviously. Wright Report, if you don't know, WRIGHTREPORT with 2 T's. But follow my company, guys. I run my own sports news media company, TWSN, the Right Way Sports Network, on Twitter, TWSN with 3 underscores. We're going to be moving the company out to Cincinnati, Ohio next summer. So super excited about that. We plan to be, that's going to be where our home office is based out of. A lot of exciting stuff happening. Got a really awesome team of 50 plus talented writers, analysts, and things of that nature. And we've got a lot of great stuff happening. So guys, appreciate all the support that all of you have been given to our team. Like I said, I'm just blessed to, be in the position to help shift the culture. So I appreciate that.
All right. And appreciate you coming on. Give him a follow. Definitely. There's gonna be lots of great Bengals stuff out there to talk about this year. So
yes, sir.
Thanks for tuning in. Who day?
Good day.